Hello everyone, welcome back to Pixar Discussions. I am Captain Logan.
Oh, I'm the Geoff.
Hey, how's it going, Jeff? Today we're going to... Thanks for being here. Thanks for waking up for just a few minutes so that we can talk about Cars 2. And today we are...
Is anyone really anywhere?
We are in our third to last episode of Pixar Discussions, actually for the movies that are out so far.
For the full-length feature films
for the full-length features, because we're going to do the shorts, and then whatever comes out after that, of course, we'll eventually probably come back and do full-length discussions on. And it might be cool to even... I don't know about logistics and stuff, but it might even be cool when new stuff comes out for you to even do the how we felt about.
Oh, I would love that.
Videos. That could be cool,
that
too.
Seems appropriate.
So anyway, Cars 2 today, and let's go ahead and jump straight into this, Jeff.
Forbidden opinions may be expressed in the following discussion.
Interesting that we follow up. I love that. I'm gonna start using. Can I have that? Can I use that? Forbidden opinions. I love that. That would actually be a wonderful name for a YouTube channel. Somebody should call their channel that. Forbidden opinions. Yeah.
I bet someone already has.
Maybe so. So anyway, it's interesting to me that Pixar followed up their arguably heaviest, or one of their heaviest films with, or at least the way you and I kind of saw it, with, I think, undisputably their lightest one.
No argument there.
This movie was critically panned. 35% on Rotten Tomatoes is what I saw while it was out. I don't know if that's gone up or down since then. A lot of people,
I don't think it's moved much.
A lot of people really, really did not like this movie. Certainly in comparison to the rest of the Pixar films, people expect something more poignant, something pushing envelopes, and what we got here in a lot of people's eyes, and in mine too, even though I liked it better than a lot of people did, was a movie that was kind of typical kiddie fare. And I kind of think that's what we have here. Now, you compare it to Planes, and it's like Toy Story, but how good is it really? So we'll talk about that. I was irritated by the critical panning when it came out, because I felt like people were being unfair to it. I thought they were expecting too much from Pixar. Like, Pixar can't just have a good time and make a fun movie. Having seen it a second time, doesn't hold up as well. I liked it a lot in the theater, and this viewing was not as into it. And also, as I keep saying, I like Cars more than most people. That movie spoke to me in a way it didn't other people. This movie, kind of just a silly romp. Not a lot else going on with it. Yeah.
Well, if only that were true.
Okay. Yeah. And I get why you're saying that, because there's kind of the obligatory third act, tell you what the movie's about kind of stuff, right?
If they could take the moral and the message and the lesson to learn out of this movie, it would do nothing but good.
Well, in fact, I would argue that they wouldn't have to change anything about the plot. That they simply would have to take out a couple of dialogue scenes. Yeah,
3 minutes total of dialogue.
Simply overwritten stuff and spoon-feeding the audience to let you know what the message is in case you missed it.
That's exactly the problem.
And a lot of that is because you get 40 minutes in and you're thinking, I'm used to these movies being about something. What is this movie about? And I kind of feel like for me anyway, the kind of fun craziness kind of carries me through a lot of it. It's not great. It's not brilliant. But a lot of the fun craziness does kind of pull me through it. And then I could get to the end of the movie and look back and decide for myself what it was about, if anything. And when you have the silly stuff with like what the villain plot is, with like the lemons who are angry because everybody makes fun of them, and then I can compare that to Mater's plight on my own. I don't need the movie to make that comparison for me. And so that kind of stuff, if it was a little bit more subtle, I could go, okay, there's this silly, crazy romp movie, and I'm surprised by that from Pixar. It certainly is jarring, but but then I could say, but there actually is a little bit of stuff, and it really undermines that by telling you what it is.
Yeah, this is an example of what I love about all the other Pixar movies because it does what none of the other Pixar movies do. None of the others grab you by the nose and say, look here at this important lesson about life and friendship.
Where they've got that, like I said, obligatory thing at the end where they got to sum it all up.
And even from the very beginning, the conflict between Mater and Lightning in that first race, then their fight afterwards.
Yeah.
Every phase of that story arc, just to me,
I would almost make the case
it was that phase.
For the first movie being Lightning McQueen's movie, I'm a little surprised that I'm saying this, but I actually think Lightning McQueen gets too much screen time in this. Because it's not his movie, and he's really just kind of around. Whenever he has any amount of dialogue, it really is just to tell you what you're supposed to be getting out of the Mater story, and that's really problematic because it makes me not like him, and I'm supposed to like him, and I liked him in the first movie, so I don't like
Mater,
that.
you are the bomb.
Yeah, I didn't need that. Yeah. Well, and it's unnatural. He feels I don't want to say out of character, but he feels like he's reading scripted dialogue.
Yeah,
and that's really and I feel like that through a lot of this. Part of the problem with the whole setup. Well, part of the problem is the setup. I like all the spy stuff, but how we get there in the first place, pretty contrived. Yeah. Like I'm not buying. Okay, here's the problem. This is one of those stories where they have to kind of force a way for the interpersonal conflict to happen in the first place. If Lightning McQueen never has Mater go to the races because because
he knows better.
Because he's afraid that he's going to embarrass him. Then why would he make the leap to make him his crew chief?
Bingo. That
doesn't make any sense, and that creates the setup for their interpersonal conflict, and also getting Mater into the whole spy thing in the first place. That's what really hurts it, because once you get there, the spy stuff. It gets kind of fun, but I'm not buying how we got there, and that's weird.
Yeah, I would have, and your mileage may vary. This might be a forbidden opinion, but
mileage, well done.
Yeah. I would have had an easier time accepting the juxtaposition of the spy thing and the race thing, and the fact that it somehow involves the characters from Cars 1.
Yeah.
If they hadn't tried to stitch them together as much as they did. If they had just said, we're throwing together these unrelated things, suck it up. I could have sucked that up. Or if they had done...
The bad guy's trying to sabotage your race
job.
Is fine. I think. As soon as you make that the thing that ties them together, that's all you need to tie them together.
They could have left it at that. Or if they wanted to make this... if they wanted to integrate that with a personal story and had done a better job of integrating them, I could accept that. And I could respect that. But what they did was try and fail. And... that's the part of the negative critical reaction to this movie that I think actually is kind of deserved.
Oh, it is, yeah.
And a lot of it is not.
But on a storytelling level, and that's what people expect from Pixar movies is good storytelling, this is very mediocre. And
yeah,
I would make the argument that this is the weakest story they've told.
No, for sure.
And I don't care for Bug's Life as much as you did, but I think this is definitely the weakest story that they've told. And I think some of that outcry and backlash that this got to was we don't want a Cars sequel. A lot of people saying,
a lot of people were all butthurt about.
Yeah, well they didn't, but fair enough, because I get why people didn't love the first Cars like I did. I didn't necessarily need a sequel as fast as we got one.
Yeah.
And it seemed kind of rushed out, and so when people say this seems like an excuse for more merchandising because Cars has been a huge merchandising machine for them, as soon as you do something like this, all you have to do is make a bunch of die-cast cars, and you've got this whole commercial powerhouse, Cars becomes its own institution, and it's not about the movies anymore. It's about moving merchandise. Then Planes happens. Yeah, I can't argue with that. That clearly is going on. Having said that, it's not that the film is not entertaining. There's a lot of fun stuff. There's a lot of really fun stuff in there.
There's so much really fun stuff in this movie.
So I'm glad we got it. I'm not going to say I'm glad we got it over other things that they could have done. And since you can only get one of these a year, and since they take so long to make, selection is important. Selection is as important as location when you're putting up a brick and mortar business.
Yeah, and part of it, I think, is a hazard of being Pixar. I mean, what do? They make movies that no one in their right mind would expect anyone to make.
That's true.
You know, pretty much the whole series have been stories that if someone had told any sane person like 2 years ahead of time, by the way, there's going to be an animated movie made about a junk robot and there will be no dialogue for the first 45 minutes of it.
Yeah. They take these amazing risks, but
and they do it.
Wouldn't you?
So when every sane person at the meeting table in the big latte-filled room said, "What do you mean the next thing you're going to do is a sequel to Cars? That's insane." This wisdom carried a lot less weight than it would anyplace else because they're used to doing stories that, no, that's insane.
But I would make the case that there's a big difference.
And
because
this time it really was insane.
Here's the thing, though. The difference is when, say, DreamWorks, and I mean their movies have gotten better, but when say a company like
they've gotten worse.
When a company like, but just to be fair, they're making more competent movies now. When a company like DreamWorks puts out a sequel, nobody's surprised because they've always done it. If something is even marginally successful, there is another one. Pixar, people really raised eyebrows when there was a Toy Story 2. They were like, we thought you guys were better than that. That you weren't just going to do cash-in movies, right? Where you were, okay, a movie was like hugely successful, critically and commercially, one of the biggest things ever made, we've got to do another one. And then it was really good. So then when Pixar decides to do another sequel, I'm of two minds.
Yeah,
and I was that way with Cars because the first place is where a lot of people go, which is, well, you guys are better than this. We thought you were better than cash-ins. We look to you for new original things that we've never heard of that we can fall in love with. That's what we look for now. You are the new Disney classics, where and even almost cooler than that because you're not even going to pre-existing source material. You're telling brand new stories that are new from the ground up. But then the other part of me says, okay, but when they did a sequel to Toy Story, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone could do a sequel well, these guys could.
And I'm not saying this is a bad movie. I am saying that it's got a little sequelitis. There's certainly a little bit of that. And what do you think of the choice to make it almost a different genre? Because I think that's what they did in order to try to curb some of that.
I think that was a good impulse. And I don't have at first in the theater I thought, well, when is this going to turn back into Cars? Because I was thinking of the opening to Toy Story 2.
Oh yeah,
where it's Buzz in the video game,
and 3 now.
And 3, similarly they'll do these openings and okay, yeah, this is cool and weird. What's going on? No, we're going to get back to the real story. No, this is actually the movie. Okay. I didn't have a problem with the genre change. 100% of my problem with this movie is the way that it made me feel like I was being talked down to so often.
Let me ask you a question. If it turned out to be a dumb action movie that is funny and you're laughing at it and you like all the like clever puns and all that stuff and you get to the end and you can't put your finger on what it was supposed to be about, is it a better movie?
This would have been.
Like, would that have been okay with you?
That would have been totally okay with me.
That's where I'm at.
I mean, At that point,
take everything on a case-by-case basis. Yeah. We might be a little disappointed because we expect more from Pixar, but let's not, where I'm at is, and no disrespect to anybody else's opinion, but let's not be prudes about it. Let's take movies, even Pixar movies, on a case-by-case basis and say, what's it trying to do and does it achieve it? The problem with this movie, and not to beat a dead horse, is that in one place, what it wants to do is be a fun, crazy, silly spy movie, and it succeeds at that. But then it shoehorns in the heart, and that's not working. And so, if it wants that, it needs to integrate it, and it needs to not try to cheat by making me think that it is somehow deeper or more poignant than it is.
And Pixar is usually really good at having the heart and the wacky. And
that makes you think
letting them live together and interact quite happily.
But it makes you think that this didn't start
really
with
failed.
Because I don't think they started with a story. I think they started with, we got to do a sequel to Coal Eyes.
And then, okay, what the heck do you do? How are we going to get a sequel to
I think the other weird thing about this movie is that they're going, let's have another genre. Let's do something we've never done before. Let's do a spy movie. Problem is, they've done a spy movie.
Yeah.
And Incredibles does it better than
this. And they did it really well.
Yeah, that's the... I mean, it's a superhero movie, but it's got those spy elements, and I felt like I kind of been here already, and maybe it was... I mean, this is more traditional spy movie, more Bondish, and they're parodying more of that. Whereas I think Incredibles was...
the parodies.
Yeah, and they were fun. But I think Incredibles was homaging it and borrowing from it and just straight up doing it. I think this was spoofing it.
I think they had a checklist. Movies to cite, things to parody, gags to rip,
and
jokes to make.
And I don't mind that because it's kind of a fun... It's kind of a fun game to try to find them all.
And they do that.
I did kind of feel like I was in a scavenger hunt. This movie doesn't hold my attention on a story level. I kind of find myself more watching it for the references and for the puns and jokes and things. Like, after a while, I found myself on this viewing going, oh, I hope I didn't miss any story stuff because I was concentrating more on all the signs they were throwing at me and things like that.
I had the opposite reaction. I kept thinking, I hope I didn't miss any of the cool signs and in-jokes and puns because of being distracted by this very forced story elements.
I think that
keep
really
popping up.
I think that really tells you something about what this movie really is.
And that's...
And forced story elements is right. I mean, I think that even a lot of... While some of them are fun, I think a lot of the crux of what keeps the story moving is a lot of really unlikely and implausible miscommunications.
Yeah, and... for a movie that rips off and homages so many other movies and other stories of various kinds, there are writers who famously are really good at writing that kind of a story. And I want to ask them, why, Pixar, why could you not have taken a month to read some Oscar Wilde or some Gilbert and Sullivan, for heaven's sake? Some, or, name another. There are certainly plenty of them. There are such great examples of how to actually get somewhere with the dumb misunderstanding. And the 2 or 3 dumb misunderstanding conversations in this are...
Oh, there's more than that. Well, straight up conversations, okay, but there's a lot of, like quick...
The ones where they take
exchanges.
The dumb misunderstanding and drag it out for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That is the stuff that could find a very good home on the cutting room floor, guys. And, that is the stuff that had me reaching for the fast forward. Because it isn't funny.
He does that in the movie theater, and I'm like, Geoff, it doesn't work like that in the theater. They can't fast forward, man.
Oh, if only... But, alas... No, this... In all fairness, though... Again, being weak for a Pixar movie is still pretty darn good.
And that's why I don't think 35% is fair.
35% is ridiculous.
And again, we really shouldn't make everything about the rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but that's
a convenient number. It serves as a good example,
and I think it also, and it also seems to reflect what a lot of the fans felt too. I mean, because I've talked, most of the people I've talked to, Cars 2 is horrible in comparison to the other Pixar films, and I think it's a little bit different than when you're talking about franchises, where it's like where you get like a second or third movie in a franchise, and it's building really hard on what came before it, and you don't like it because it doesn't hold up to what was there before. Well, it's like you're continuing a thing. It's supposed to be part of that. This is a little bit different than that. So, like, you know, if you look at this to the other Cars and you say, I wanted what we got with Cars, okay, fair enough. But if you're looking at this to the other Pixar films that you really liked, first of all, what were you expecting if you didn't like Cars?
Yeah.
Of course, this isn't even as good as that, I don't think. Not even remotely as good as that, but on a story level. But again, the other thing too is we're talking about a studio, not a franchise, right? So yeah. I don't know. I just don't know that it's I guess all I'm saying is it fair? This is the question. Is it fair to expect Pixar to change hearts and minds every time? Is that fair?
Well, I think it's unreasonable to expect that of anybody, but I especially think it's...
The problem is if they've done it 10 times...
Yeah.
Then I'm just saying, I can see both sides of this. I can completely understand why people reacted that way. They go to a Pixar movie, they only get it once a year now, not even always once a year, and they're like
well, next year.
What? Oh, okay. And they're like, well, how come I didn't cry one time? Like we have expectations, and people say, well, this is the way I felt whenever I've seen one of these, no matter what it was. Why didn't I get that this time?
They are usually so much better, but this was still. I mean, I'll still give this better marks as a movie than just about any of the DreamWorks films I've seen, and several of the ones that I haven't.
Is it better than like Kung Fu Panda? Is it? Because I haven't seen a lot of those. But
I wouldn't say it's better than Kung Fu Panda, but it's not worse.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's not worse than Monsters vs. Aliens.
I think that's fighting words. I mean, I think you'll see folks in the comments not agree with that.
That's why I warned you all about forbidden opinions.
It's a forbidden opinion, yeah. There is no such thing.
These people are awful. They don't hate this movie enough. That other thing they compared it to, I laughed my butt off. How can anyone...
But again, I mean, like I'm just saying we are very much in the minority on this.
I mean, I would buy this as a C+ movie instead of an A+ movie.
But it's not a D-.
It's not a sub F. I mean, like.
But I'm glad you said that because
35% rating out of 100. Tell me something you gave something. Something has a 35 out of 100 rating, and I'm looking for like Mystery Science Theater bad. I'm looking for like the Gremlin Pacer of movies bad, and this was not bad. It was less good than we expected.
Yeah, and again, even taking it on its own terms, and especially comparing it to the other film in its own franchise, it's mediocre.
Yeah,
but it's not bad. I enjoy it for the references. I enjoy a lot of voice performances, and just the action spy stuff is fun and hilarious, and there's some neat gags that kind of come back and pay off and stuff. I really liked the Mater turning into different trucks thing with like the taco truck. I thought that was really funny. There's things like that I really enjoyed. I even think that making it Mater's movie was kind of risky.
Yeah. That was out on a limb.
He is just kind of by nature a supporting character, and I think that's part of where some of the weakness in the script comes from. Is I don't know that you can tell a really good, poignant story with that character. I mean, they went kind of the obvious way place, and I'm just not sure where else you'd go. Where it's his learning to play to his strengths and discovering that he's dumb, but discovering that he has his expertises and the things that he can do that nobody else can. I don't know that I buy what Lightning McQueen learns about him, but I think I buy his arc to a degree.
There was nothing wrong with that as story if they would just not have been quite so heavy-handed about it.
Yeah, that's right.
And everything about this movie that does not delight me comes down to the places where they just pushing too hard to try and make sure this doesn't go over anybody's head.
Yeah, and again, they haven't done that.
Which is so
they've never done that before. But the other thing that I wonder about that is if it wasn't also overcompensating to prove that it's still a Pixar movie. You know, like knowing the expectations. This hurts a lot of movies these days, where people go into making these things and they know what people expect from them, so they're trying to give them that. And in this, it happens in a very artificial kind of way, where they don't usually have to put it in your face. And so here it's like, I don't know that it's so much about it feels like you're not giving the audience enough credit, where I wonder if it doesn't come from a place of we're trying to make sure that we're giving you that lesson you think Pixar movies are supposed to have. That's the distinction I would make.
It makes me think of the conceit behind the Drawn Together movie in a way. Oh, they're all chasing after this magical thing called a point. Because if they have it, it will allow them to be relevant.
That's awesome.
And this movie.
I think we spend all of our lives looking for that, do we not?
The best parts of this movie are when it is not trying to have a point.
Yeah.
And not trying.
And how often is that a case?
Tell much story.
Because as I've always said, we come upon
anomalous for the Pixar.
We often in writing, especially if we're writing stories where we're allowing our characters to take us places, we very often arrive at points when we weren't trying to.
Yeah, and that's how you know you're doing it right.
Yeah,
that's how you know that the decisions of your characters are in fact organic to them.
The character thing I liked the most in this, let's get more into details. The character thing, the character thing I liked most in this, Geoff, was Mater knows about car parts and car stuff, and that was the stuff I bought the most. I didn't buy that the other spies believed he was a spy because he knew all that stuff. I didn't necessarily grab onto that, but the fact that he was able to do that and actually help them with their mission I thought was really cool. Now, the fact that the universe just constantly coalesces to him because he's the protagonist whenever he's in a situation where he has no idea what he's doing, that's cartoony and irritating. I know it's a cartoon, and again, if it would just allow itself to be a cartoon, yeah, okay. I could live with that. That stuff was really forced and I had a hard time with. But just the whole business of he knows about lemons, he knows about car parts. He could look at a picture and find things that nobody else would ever notice. I liked that I guess in a character place, I enjoyed this movie is about somebody who on the surface looks like they have nothing to bring to the table, and here's what he's actually good at.
Oh, they actually did have something.
Yeah, so he might be, as far as street smarts, kind of dumb, but then he's got this practical thing where, and I guess I don't know, if anything spoke to me at all in the movie, it was that, because I have this a lot where I will sometimes think, oh man, I wish certain people could be a little bit more well-read and engaged in intellectual conversation and that sort of thing, and that's what I like. But then I always get really self-conscious when somebody knows how to do practical stuff that I have no skills in, and I go, oh man, I sure wish I knew how to work on cars or how to fix my appliances and things like that, and sometimes it makes me second guess certain things about myself and go, what use is my skill set really?
Yeah, exactly. And That's all of us. We have to find what use our skill set really is. And make some kind of peace at some point with the fact that everyone's is different.
We have another "be yourself" message here. Pixar likes to go to that quite a bit. We had it with we've had it with other things. Monsters University did it best. With the notion of there are some things that you just simply cannot do no matter what you try to do because of your physical limitations, and that's a hard lesson to learn, and I really like that. I've said this before, but contrast that with Planes. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I haven't seen that.
Contrast that with Planes, where the lesson was you can do anything no matter what your physical limitations are, which is just simply not true.
An outright lie.
Yeah, and here I felt like it was almost this weird middle place where it was, Mater has limitations but it seems to be more about his learning what he actually does have to bring to the table. So in his trying to not be himself, it isn't like I have aspirations to do a thing I'm not capable of. It's not I'm trying to make people scared when I'm just not scary, like Monsters University was. It's I actually want to be myself. I actually want to just be who I am and not think about that, but it's hurting my friends, so what do I do? I can empathize with that.
And they could have handled that so much better.
Yeah.
I'm
saying the setup for that is okay. Well, not the setup, but just the idea is okay.
That this isn't Radiator Springs, Mater. You've got to act different here. Scene is one on my fast forward please list. Because even in the theater,
he goes up to attendants. He's like, "Can we fast forward?" Like, no, Jeff, you can't fast forward in a movie theater, man.
Even in the theater,
he brings remote controls with him, universal remotes, just hoping it will work.
But those glasses do make things 3D. Try it sometime. Even the first time I saw that in theater, as soon as that conversation began. This is not only is this conversation going to go on too long and be tiresome, but this is going to be the big thread that they hammer in the whole movie, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
Fair enough.
What else do you think works?
All the cars in different countries. That was fun.
Well, and if you're doing a spy movie, you've got to go international.
Yeah, the international thing was fun, except for the song over the closing credits, but we'll skip over that. The cars and kimonos. What does that look like? Oh, okay.
Oh, that's what that looks like.
I like how the cars themselves are built differently in each place, and their cars and they have their lives. I like how the rest of the world still has these sort of automotive landforms the way Radiator Springs does. I like that as a touch. I like a lot of the little touches in this movie, and some of them were outright scream hilarious.
I liked getting to see, and again, remember this is before Planes, I liked getting to see all the different vehicles that weren't cars. Yeah. I like the boats. Like, one of the first things we see is a boat with a face. You're like, oh, this is cool. We're really expanding this universe a bit and doing some other things with it.
Boats, planes, a train or two, and some of those kind of obscure cars, like the three-wheeler they met in Paris.
That was so weird.
And there actually used to be cars made like that in Europe and in England. There's the Reliant Robin.
That's an awesome name for a car.
Yeah, it's these little originally red things, and there are two wheels in the back and one in the front. And the reason they existed was because due to some peculiarity of British law, they were taxed as motorcycles rather than as automobiles.
That's weird.
So it was cheaper to
just
own them.
Just because of the number of wheels?
And some other things about how they were built and what kind of engine was in them. But the problem with them was that you'd have the two wheels in the back and the one in the front, and if you did anything wrong ever, the whole thing would tip up on your front and left or front and right wheel, and you'd be just hanging in the air there.
Holy crap.
And you had to get some friends to come and tip the car back onto itself. And famously terrible vehicles. There was also...
They got a lot of, again, forgive me for this, but mileage out of all that car stuff. I really enjoyed all that. I mean, like there were a lot of things where they would mention names of cars and things that I either would get and think was funny because I got them, or things where I was like, oh, I should look that up and see what they're talking about. Yeah, that's pretty great. The Queen of England is a Queen Victoria. Yeah. There's some really fun stuff like that.
Professor Zundap was a German manufacturer. They mainly did motorcycles, but for a very brief period, they thought they'd try and do cars. And so they came out with a line or two. And they actually did make this thing. They called it the Janus. It was a two-seater. The two people sat back to back. And one of them was facing forward and one was facing backwards. And the car was kind of symmetrical in build. So it was really hard to see which end of it was actually the front.
Okay.
Like Professor Zundap.
That's awesome.
That was a real car for 6 months.
This brings up a really interesting question, and I haven't talked to anybody like this with this movie, so I don't know. But is it possible that this kind of movie is sort of like basing things on source material that somebody is a huge fan of, where they will appreciate it more because of the references, and that will obscure a little bit of their enjoyment of it because they're not thinking about the story stuff and what the movie's actually doing. They're just enjoying, somebody made this movie for me. I wonder if people that really know their car stuff would get more of a kick out of this than other people, because like the first Cars movie, there was a lot more about racing than there was about car stuff, and so like racing fans were probably like, this is really fun because there's all these like pun names of race, of like famous racers and stuff. But this movie, there's a lot more just like mechanical stuff, and you go to Europe, you've got to do all the European cars and make some models and stuff. So I wonder if car buffs would not think this is more fun than your average viewer.
Assuming they came at it with a reasonably open mind.
Yeah.
Very possible. I know what...
Because a lot of that stuff went over my head.
The percentage of in stuff like that I did get are kind of what saved the movie for me.
Well, wouldn't you say there's a lot of it?
And there is so
You can't tell
much.
me there's not another 50 references that neither of us even caught. Because there's a lot of things where I'm like, oh, and there's a sign, and I wish I could have read it because I'm sure it's something amusing. Because almost every sign or license plate or something means something.
Yeah, because it's Pixar, and they do that. There's...
Well, and this is too broad of a topic. You can get so much out of all that. I mean, it's not hard to come up with.
Yeah, and even more, I think, than in some of the other movies theirs. This one has just so many kind of little round the corner gags. Whether it's the car stuff or the references to this and that, some are subtle and some are less so. But
yeah,
there are just all over this thing. And
well, and I don't even mind the ones that are not subtle, because sometimes I enjoy puns and I enjoy groaners sometimes, and there are some of those, and that's totally fine with me.
My brothers used to call this the Zucker-Abrams-Zucker principle, where you make a movie where there is a joke every 20 seconds. And that way, if only a third of them are actually funny, that averages out to a laugh a minute.
Which is, I think, the principle that you live by just in your regular everyday life, in just talking with people.
Come to think of it,
Geoff always
served me well.
Geoff always told me growing up that the key to comedy in just your regular everyday life is to go for a percentage.
Exactly. You're not going to win them all. And with any luck, you can keep them all subtle enough that the ones that fail won't draw in much attention to themselves.
Do you remember our old 5-point finger scale?
Yes, I do.
You'd tell a joke, and I'd give you a 2 or a 3. A 5, I was on the floor. You didn't get a 5 unless I actually literally fell out of my chair and was writhing on the ground. Literal
ROFL.
That's right. Anyway, what else should we say? So we got Michael Caine.
Michael Caine.
That's fun. He's hilarious as you would expect, and seems to get the material and is given a great hilarious voice performance. He was absolutely the right voice for that character, especially because you don't get to see Michael Caine, do a lot of action stuff anymore. So, and I guess he was never really known as a big action star. But it is kind of fun for Michael Caine to sort of get to voice James Bond, kind of, or at least the older version of that. So I don't know. I really enjoyed that. It's a way for older actors to get to be in stuff like this.
Well, I mean, shoot, that was Doc Hudson all over.
Well, that's true.
They couldn't get back. They couldn't get George Carlin back, sadly, for the same reason. And
yeah, and they actually replaced his voice, but then Doc Hudson they just killed off, which was fine with me because that made perfect sense. I thought,
yeah, that felt tasteful.
With the first movie, it was. I mean, they could have just had him like drive off and live in some car retirement home or something. I'm glad they didn't do that because. With the first movie, he seemed like he was elderly. He was kind of on probably the end of his life. His life was kind of behind him, and I don't know. That was a classy thing to do. But let me ask you a question. Don't you think that, and I'm just going to go to hilarious logistics of this universe because that's my favorite thing to do. We did it with Toy Story 3. We're going to do it with this too. So two big questions. Yeah, but it's fine. Just do this because it's fine. Let's put up the cones.
Yeah.
Caution.
Which we usually try to avoid. But
so the first question I have about the logistics of this universe and how in the world things work. There's a bunch of stuff like how do they go to restaurants? That's going a little too far. How do they drink? Like how do they pick up their drinks? There are places where people are just where cars are just sitting in a place and they have a drink next to them and you have no idea how they even got there. But okay, here's my question.
I do see them use straws.
Yeah, I know, but how did they pick up their drink and go anywhere with it? Okay, here's my question. Doc Hudson passes away. Mm-hmm. What is the life expectancy of a car? Like couldn't you we see a lot of classic cars that in real life, of course, that get like overhauled and refurbished and stuff. Shouldn't a car have like 150, 200 year lifespan if they can afford parts?
Well, it comes down, as with toys, the Toy Story, it does come down to some extent to the mind-brain problem.
Yep.
I mean, how many parts of a car can you replace, and that
we
car
talked
still
about this
be that car?
Didn't we talk about this with the first one?
There was actually for the first movie there was a
I love that
deleted, rejected sequence where Lightning's engine and Mater's was going to be switched because when he got caught in this town, they were going to take his engine and steal it and implant it in somebody else, and he was stuck with the bad junky engine left over from the yard, and someone else had his engine. It's hard to say. I mean, how many parts of a car could you replace and it still be that person?
Yeah.
The guy at the beginning, whose name I cannot think of.
Beginning of what? What are we talking about?
Of this movie. The one who gets caught on the boat and is cubed.
Oh, yeah.
Leland Turbo. He's been cubed. Does that mean he's dead?
I don't know. I mean, we see one car supposedly die, and it's kind of weird that in a movie that is kind of just a lighthearted, silly cartoon, we are killing characters. And I guess it's because it's a spy movie, and maybe we just are not as sensitive about that as we were 20 years ago, right?
And the one guy said,
but we see a car explode, and it's like, oh, he's dead, because like somebody said, oh, kill him, and then I thought it was kind of fun that like off screen they do it as if it would be a horrible bloody mess, right? Like they don't actually show him explode, they just do it off screen, whereas in any other movie where the cars weren't sentient, the fun part is seeing the cars explode. I think that was a really cute idea, but like I just think it's interesting that we're not sensitive about that anymore.
Just before they blow up the blue American car, at first he thinks that their threat is to crack his engine block, and he says, well, I can have an engine block replaced.
Can you?
Okay, well, I mean, you can replace the engine block of a car.
But are you still you?
And
would
the
it
implication
be like,
there would be that it still would be him. But in that case, well, Are there certain parts?
Where does your soul go? Does it just move around in whatever part of you is left? Like I would figure it would be like
thing, like 2/3 of your parts are replaced, and
I would
one more
figure
than that, and
be like
your soul is transmigrated somehow.
Yeah, I think it would be more like reprogramming an EMH or something. Yeah. From Voyager. I don't get that.
What makes you if you are a car?
And jumping off of that, my second question is, so cars are manufactured. By whom? Who gets to decide what cars get built? Why are there lemons?
Yeah. Would a loving manufacturer create lemons?
Here's what's weird about it. In the real world, cars are an industry, and what gets made is made in order to sell things for people, and the reason that bad things sometimes get built is because you have certain companies that want to sell you something and they don't care whether it works or not. If everything is sentient, your world would look much different. It wouldn't be like that. We're not manufacturing cars for anyone to buy, because otherwise you'd have cars that would be slaves or indentured indentured servants to other cars. So,
cars populate this world.
I don't want to get ridiculous with this, but I'm just saying. But I mean, like, we're in a world where nature seems to be built around this idea of automotive and land vehicles. We saw car bugs in the first movie. They seem to be natural. So why would there be manufacture? I don't understand that. And I think that there is even a line about it kind of in the first movie, but this one makes it really, really clear. Because there's all this talk about like crappy lemons being built, and there's a lot of discussion about it. I don't understand that.
Yeah, that's a giant question. Built by who? Built how? Do cars have babies?
Why else would you... And I see that's the big thing I was wondering, because why else would you have male and female cars? And what makes them different? What is the difference between a male and a female car?
Certain cars are certainly guy cars, and certain cars are certainly chick cars.
No, and I think that's fun, and for self-identification and stuff, that's kind of amusing, and we can maybe take it as a slight commentary about
Mazda Miata.
Gender identity.
Chick car right there.
But you just have to wonder if there is any sort of reproduction, because, and I mean, like, sexual reproduction, because otherwise, and I don't want to conjure bizarre mental pictures, but what is, but like, how would you get this world if cars are built and not born? I really don't understand. But then again, nobody ever talks about parents.
Yeah.
There's nothing about family in these movies whatsoever, except for the family that you make for yourself. So, I don't know. You just got to wonder, and I don't know that I want to see it explored. I'm not sure that that's something.
Please feel not to make a Cars 3 about that.
I guess all I'm saying is, when they draw attention to it, it makes it harder to buy this whole world in the first place, and I think that is... So, I'm not trying to nitpick things, except that it is kind of fun to talk about, just because it's odd and interesting. But what I'm saying is, I have talked to lots of people that don't like cars, starting from the place of... I just can't get my mind around... We talked about this with the first one. My mind around a world built around these vehicles that are clearly built with doors where people are supposed to get inside of them. I can't deal with that. This makes it worse for those kinds of folks. And when I like cars, and when I can't deal with it, I can't imagine those people can even watch these.
Or when they're in Paris, knocking through the alleys, and Mater stumbles across somebody's stall selling headlights. And he meets this car there whose headlights are her eyes instead of the windshield like every other car in this universe.
I didn't notice that. Okay. So I guess she gets her eyes replaced regularly.
And seeing this, he shrinks away and squick. Your eyes are in the wrong place.
I didn't notice that. That's hilarious. Because I guess for most cars in this universe, the windshield would be the window into your soul.
Could not have put it better myself.
What else do you want to talk about?
Some fun, famous voices. Joe Mantegna as one of the lemon cars. Eddie Izzard.
Yeah.
Eddie Izzard.
I like Eddie Izzard. I often have to look him up and notice when he voices things, because I think he's pretty good at voice modulation and lending his voice to whatever it needs to be. And of course, as we talked about before, Pixar picks people based on performance and what they want a voice to sound like, not necessarily based on how famous they are, because they need names to sell a product. So you're gonna get things like that in there and be like, oh man, that's that guy that I know.
Yeah, I mean, they did in none of their marketing do they make anything out of the fact that they've actually got some reasonably recognizable names in this cast.
One of the neatest things going all the way back to Toy Story is that they've never sold these movies on that. Even Toy Story, if memory serves, the trailers were not like starring Tom Hanks. It wasn't like that. I mean, maybe
it was a while before they even announced that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think the early teaser trailers, they were selling it on concept and on the animation, but not even going, look at us, we have 3D animation. Like writing the first ever 3D. I think it was pretty much just.
Yeah,
we're gonna show you what we have, and we know you're gonna freak out because of what it is. Like, we don't have to tell you. It's kind of like Batman the Animated Series, where we didn't even have to put the title in it. We knew it was Batman. Like with this, it was like, we don't have to tell you it's the first 3D animated movie. You know, there's never been one.
You know this already.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's the spirit I was missing in Cars 2.
Yeah.
We don't have to tell you because you already are smarter than plywood and figured it out.
And again, I just wonder, I'm sorry, I hope we're not talking too circular. I just wonder if the problem is, since they didn't really start from a big idea and character place, they just weren't sure how to just tell a fun romp.
I think self-consciousness is the enemy here.
Because the fact that John Lasseter actually directed this has really got to make you wonder how that happened. Because I would have thought Lasseter was above that kind of storytelling.
Maybe he was whacked out on pain meds that day.
Because he also wrote plans, or at least co-wrote plans, and I didn't. And I thought that script was super lackluster. This at least was really clever. Like that, I wouldn't even call it all that clever. Anyway, not a ton of meat here, so I don't know what else we want to talk about, but. I think I've kind of already said everything I wanted to say about it.
I'm pretty sure I had something else, and it's just floating away. I did enjoy this movie. I couldn't call it a great movie, but I did enjoy it.
I have to say, I enjoyed it less this time.
Fair enough.
I still like it, but it's not one I would go back to a lot.
I'm willing to guess that I enjoyed it less than I did the last time I watched it. It is unusual for the Pixar run. I don't usually have that experience.
I don't either. I said for a long time when this came out that one of the things that killed it for people was simply that they didn't know. Well, I don't know that they didn't know what it was going in, but that it was too weird and jarring to have suddenly a different genre and call the thing Cars 2, because 2 implies we're going to give you the next installment of this thing. And I always thought they should have called it Spy Cars or something like,
other than that.
Like that. I still think that, but seeing it a second time...
The Incarables.
I'm not sure... Seeing it a second time, I'm not gonna say that a title change would have done anything for the critiquing and ratings of this movie. And just how people saw it. I don't know. I think people still would have kind of turned on it.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't what people expected it to be, and people thought it, and what it was something nobody wanted.
They didn't want it.
So people came into it knowing they hadn't wanted this movie to exist in the first place, and with a pretty strong, I think, preconception of what it was going to be. And it wasn't that. It was, well, what is it exactly?
Yeah.
So you have not only the initial bias working against it, but also its failure to be the kind of movie that people assumed the sequel was going to be. And that lost it a lot of points for a lot of people. Well, I'm not gonna rank this among any of the rest of Pixar's movies, really.
Yeah, it's right at the bottom.
But it's certainly far from the worst movie ever made. It's certainly better than at least half of the movies that have ever been made. I think it's certainly better than at least 3/4 of the movies that have ever been made. I'll go that far. But yeah, not up to Pixar's usual standard. Fair enough. Then again, I don't know. We did this and Toy Story 3 back to back.
Yeah,
and
I think that hurt it too. That it came off of a hugely critically acclaimed movie that a lot of people liked better than the second one. They got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, like, the standards were high.
Yeah. Well, watching them 1 week out, 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, you're just
interesting
for us.
For me.
Yeah.
To compare a movie that I didn't happen to enjoy a lot, but which I recognize as a very good movie, and then a movie which I enjoyed more, but like less, and respect less.
Isn't that interesting? And that's why it's so important to be able to separate out the difference between liking something and recognizing its whether or not it is critically good.
And I think both of those are valid things.
Oh no, of course they are. No. I think you need both.
And sometimes certainly they do go together. If they never went together, we would never have taken the concept of critical appreciation seriously.
That's right.
But here's 2 movies in a row from Pixar that remind me that they don't always automatically mesh. At least for one viewer. Your mileage may vary.
Well, if we've gotten a lot of
forbidden opinion too.
We've gotten a lot of mileage out of mileage. But yeah, I don't know.
This movie was a real gas. Okay. It just doesn't know where to steer itself. That, I think, is a problem.
What makes it?
That's what breaks it for us.
Jeff, for the first 20-25 minutes, I felt like this one had a tough time backing out of the driveway.
Well, kind of got in a clutch, and
anyway, I always say that whether or not I had a really good critical appreciation of a movie, whether or not it spoke to me on an emotional level, or I just see as like an achievement or something that should be considered film canon, does not always have anything to do with how often I put a movie in. You know what I mean? I like what I like, and sometimes I just want to feel a certain way. You know what I mean? Or there's just an experience I want to have again. Having said that, I neither thought this was awful nor feel the need to watch it much. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, this project we've both been kind of holding off on rewatching. I think all of these until the day we actually watch it and do our discussion together. And some of those have sat on my shelf, and I've been kind of in the mood to watch again. Oh, that's right. I'm avoiding that until we're going to do that soon.
Well, nice thing is you've only got a couple more of those left.
Man, this one, I didn't have that feeling about at all.
Honestly, I didn't even know if you had a copy.
Oh yeah. There was no way we were going to not buy it.
Well, next time, Brave, which is the one I've not seen yet. I can't believe I skipped the Pixar movie. It's just that year, for some reason, I didn't happen to get to the theater. I mean, like, the trailers didn't really jump out at me. I wasn't really super excited about it, but it was a Pixar movie, so I wanted to go just because of that, but I just somehow didn't get to the theater to see it. And have waited on it so that we can do this.
Gonna be fun.
I hope so.
It's possible some forbidden opinions will be expressed then, too.
Well, anyway, I am...
What a monster! How could he think that?
I am really excited to get through the rest of this because it's taken us a year to get this far, and we're finally getting close to the end. So we will see you again next time, and hopefully it won't be too long from now. I am Captain Logan.
And I am the tunnel at the end of the light.
We'll see you next